Halacha Dalet. In Hilchos Shvisas Osor, the Rambam begins, Ochel ma'at v'chozav ochel. If he ate a little bit, then he ate a little bit again. So let's see what we're talking about here in the Peirush. He ate less than the amount of a large date, which is a Shvisas. And he ate again, and together now he has the measure of a Shvisas. If there is from the beginning, in the time-wise, from the beginning of eating till the end of the eating, the time it would take to consume 3 eggs, then both eatings are considered one eating, the shiur, as far as the measurement goes. But if isn't that amount, there's more. It took more time than that. Is the shiur. They are not considered as one amount, even though he consumed a Shvisas. We divide it up into 2 sections. Machon Nesher writes, where we find the source that time is reckoned in the measurement. We find this after Yuma Perik Halacha Dalet. The measure the time of eating is 3 eggs is called Kedei Achilus Pras. This is called by the Chazal the amount it takes to eat a portion. Pras means half. Means half of a bread that has 6, so half is 3, and half of it would be 3. The Rambam's shita, the Rambam's opinion is that it's 3 eggs. The Machon Nesher says that there are those who say it's 4 eggs. The Rashba is like the Rambam of 3 eggs, and like the Lashon of the Machon Nesher is 3 eggs. Now, in the root of the disagreement, if the time measurement is 3 or 4 eggs, Rae Gann explains it depends on Eruvin, on what we learned in Eruvin 82b. Here there's a disagreement. According to Rabbi Yochanan and Broike, the measurement is 3. Rabbi Shimon, the measurement is 4. And the Rishonim disagree as to whether the Halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan and Broike or like Rabbi Shimon. Now, this Halacha, that the time of Achilus Pras, of eating, of measuring time, combines things into one eating, is regarding all forbidden items, not only by Yom Kippur. Just that by Yom Kippur, there's a chidush which is greater, that even though all other foods that are eating is a kezayis, and the shiur of Yom Kippur, as we learned, is larger. It's a large date, not an olive size, which is nearly 2 olives, because it's a little less than an egg, and an egg is 2 olives. Still, you combine them together. Even though the amount of time, technically, if you say, if usually an olive would be eaten in 3 eggs times, then this should be eaten in 5 eggs times or 6 eggs times. We don't say that. We use the 3 eggs times as the limit. And really, this is the question of Rav in the Gemara in Yuma 88. If kezayis, you measure it according to this measurement of 3 eggs, and also Shvisas, which is a larger measure, is also 3 eggs or not? And Abaya says that that's something the Chacham accepted, that within this time frame, one is put at ease of mind, and more so than that, there's no ease of mind. Yom Kippur, it depends on ease of mind. Therefore, we don't expand the measure of time, even though the amount of food that has to be consumed is more than an olive's worth. In Shulchan Aruch 6:12, we find both concepts. One, whether it's 3 eggs or 4 eggs. The Torah says, like Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah, that it is in Pei Beis on Beis 82, that it is 4 eggs. Because wherever in the Shas we find, with regard to being able, food which is tomei should be able to contaminate other food, it has to be a kebeya, an egg. And how do they get to an egg? Because that's only according to Rabbi Shimon, who was of the opinion that a pras, which is half of a bread, is 4, and half of 4 is 2, and half of 2 is 1, and therefore we get to a quarter of it, which is in 1 egg. But according to the Rambam, which is 3 eggs, and the Biur Agros says, why does the Rambam opinion the Halacha according to Rabbi Yochanan and Broike, who says 3 eggs, is because in Eruvin we see that he is mentioned as Chacham. Whenever anyone's mentioned as Chacham, it means that they considered the majority opinion, and we always go according to the majority opinion. The Lechem Mishnah points out, notes with regard to the Rambam. And Erevin, the Gemara questions, what is the amount that makes something else tomei, as to make it a person tomei. I'm going to say an egg and a half, which is bigger, meaning expanded. Rashi says that is the amount of a half of a pras. And the Rambam writes the same idea in Hilchos HaTumuos, that a person doesn't become tummy until he eats. If a person's not supposed to eat, if you eat usually food, if you eat food, it contaminates a person midrabanan. Midraisa, there's no such concept, but not except by a bird. But midrabanan, if you eat food, a person has to eat. He has to eat a half a pras, which is an egg and a half. A bit more. According to this, it would seem that a complete pras is 3 eggs, and that's not mentioned at all in the Rambam. Look at the Lechem Mishnah, what his answer is. Let's point out in Shulchan Aruch there, the Rambam writes that the 3 eggs are wide. Griz and the Matei Ephraim said decided the issue that this disagreement is regarding Halacha. And whenever we come to the things that are Torah, you go according to the one who's more stringent. And when it's rabbinical, you go after the more lenient opinion. Therefore, on Yom Kippur, which is D'Oraisa, which is Minat Torah, we are more stringent that even if he weighted the amount of 4 eggs, it still is considered as if it's connected. And when you have to give a person who's sick, and if you try to first give him this option of eating small amounts, you should make sure that from the beginning of the eating until the end, there should be the time to eat 4 eggs. Like those Rishonim who are more stringent, it's not enough the time of 3 eggs, which is the Shvisas Rambam. Questions: How do you measure this? Is everybody according to the time it takes him, or the measure is according to the average? And he proves from a Mishnah in Kalim, Perek Yud Zayin, Mishnah Yud Aleph, that it says the shiurim, which are measured according to the person, and it measures taking the mincha, the kamitza of the mincha, the fistful, and taking the Ketores and Yom Kippur, which is 2 handfuls, and drinking is according to the average of how much he fills his mouth on Yom Kippur. But the shiur of Achilles Pras Yom Kippur is not mentioned. Thus we see it's according to the average, according to everyone. It doesn't change. So Minchas Chinuch concludes with a question: why didn't Chazal tell us the time of Achilles Pras? And Lechem Mishnah also, it seems that it's a specific set time for everyone. Chassam Sofer writes that he didn't have an accepted idea of how long Kedei Achilles Pras is, and he says one should be more stringent to wait between food to food. The amount of time it would take to go a half a mil, which is 9 minutes, because a mil itself is 18 minutes. If he can, of course, this depends if the sick person can wait that long, and that's the minute today to wait 9 minutes, like the Chassam Sofer. In the Rambam, we find that the shiur of Achilles Pras is measured from the beginning of the eating until the end of the last eating, not from one beginning to beginning. The Mechas Chinuch proves from the Chinuch that the eating itself we don't reckon, only the time frame in between them. That's a very big chiddush, because it can be read that from the beginning of the first eating to the beginning of the second. If it's less than 9 minutes, you're liable, even though you conclude at 12 minutes. According to Minchas Chinuch, if you eat 3 minutes the first kazayas, then you wait 9 minutes, and you eat the second kazayas, you begin to eat it, so then you'd come out already to 15 minutes. But every Tosis and Shvisas and Lashon Hara, it would seem like the Chinuch. Habis Morim questions It can't be. Rambam says specifically in Tosefta, the words of the Rambam found in Tosefta and Yuma, Perek Daled Mishnah Daled, and it's written in Shvisas of Eliyahu Mizrahi that you make the achilo itself has to be within the 9 minutes. You can't extend it beyond the 9 minutes because you began at the 9-minute framework. So the Rambam would seem only if it's more than 9 minutes it doesn't combine, but if it is the amount of achilas pras, it does combine. According to the chinuch of the Rambam, it would seem the kedei achilas pras does not combine only if it was less than kedei achilas pras, not exactly 9 minutes. Now the chinuch questions this, but the Gemara Yuma would seem that even the full 9 minutes would combine it. Now if he drank a little bit and he drank a little bit again, the Rambam says Shosam Mad v'Chozor v'Shosam. Yesh mitchilas shiur v'shein atzev shiur achroina. If there is from the beginning of the first drinking until the end of the second drinking. Now here he mentions specifically from the beginning of the drinking till the end, specifically not only the measurement of time between sips. We're talking about Kadei Shias Revias, the time it would take to drink a quarter of a lug, Mitztav on the Shia, then it's considered a Revias. V'im Lav, Ein Mitztav, otherwise they do not combine if it's longer than that. So he says that drinking has a different measure, and usually it's less time than the 9 minutes. These dinim of eating and drinking is only regarding Yom Kippur. Is not only regarding Yom Kippur, it applies to all the Yisum in the Torah as we find in Hilchos Ma'achodes, those forbidden items, that anyone who eats a barley or a kechardal, which is a mustard seed, and any one of the forbidden items to be eaten, and he waited a little bit and he ate again until he finished a whole kezayis, a whole olive size worth, whether it was unwittingly or whether he did it willfully. If he waited from the beginning to the end 3 eggs worth, time that would take to consume 3 eggs, everything is combined, and he would be liable for willful chorus or malchus, or for unwillful accidental a korban, just like somebody who eats a kazayas at one moment. If he waited longer than this, even though he didn't wait, but he ate one after the other, but it took him longer because it was such small measures that he ate that it took longer, since he didn't complete the kazayas only in the time that it takes to eat more than a chilas pras, they do not combine, and he's potter. Now look at test. The Rambam writes, if somebody drinks a revius of regular wine, of a goy, not wine that was brought on the avodah zorah, a little bit, or he took chometz and he made it into liquefied it, or chalev, he liquefied, he cooked it, and he drank it as a liquid a little bit at a time, or he drank from blood a little bit. If he waited from the beginning to the end, the amount it takes to drink a revius, no more than that, it combines. If not, it does not combine. The Maggid Mishnah writes that there are those who disagree on the Rambam and are of the opinion that even the combination of drinking is according to the Kedei Achilas Pras, and they learn it from a topic increases. There we find that all of the liquids combine, meaning that the person, if he drinks 4 different liquids, which together are only a revius, within the time of a Achilas Pras, then they make a person Tomei. So we see that the amount of combining by drinking is the same as by eating, which is half of a bread. Therefore, those commentaries disagree with the Rambam. They say that even drinking is a greater time than it takes from drinking a revius, which is a much shorter period than half of a bread. Now, regarding making a person Tomei, the Maggid Mishnah writes in Hilchos Yom that the Rambam codifies the Halacha that drinking items which are liquids, which are tomei, will cause a person to become tomei if he drank a certain amount. And if he drank a little bit, then he drank again, and he waited and drank, and waited and drank. If from the beginning to the end, there is the amount of eating, the time frame of 3 eggs, then they are combined. If not, they are not combined. So there we find the Rambam states specifically that the measurement of drinking has nothing to do with the measurement of a revius. Why here, by Yom Kippur, the Rambam writes that the time frame is the amount of a revius. He states that the Rambam is the opinion that become tomei, since it's only rabbinical, they made it more than Torah, meaning in Torah it would not combine, and therefore even a larger time would combine. So it would seem logical from the topic in Shvisas, because Shmuel is more stringent by eating food which is tomei and mashkin which is tomei, more food or drink that is tomei, more so than other eating other forbidden items, even though they question him regarding this. So we see, but at the very least, we see there's this distinction between tuma, which is the rabbinical, and those things which is the deraisa. And not to push off the Tosefta, which mentions drinking is revius. Therefore, we say the Rambam says the halacha of any drink is according to the time frame of a revius, a quarter of a liter. Rabbi Yitzchak Eben Geyes writes in his halachas that drinking on Yom Kippur is combined as well as by drinking other forbidden items such as blood is the amount of revius, and he does it all like the Rambam and not the shiur of Chilus Pras, which is the shiur of the other Rishonim. The Maggid Mishnah doesn't explain that the Rae is the one who disagrees on the Rambam. There, the Rambam writes, if he ate truma and he ate again, or he drank and he drank again, if there is from the beginning of the eating till the end, Kidei Chilus Pras, and the beginning of the drinking till the end, the amount of revius, they, according to the Rambam, they combine. The Rae there objects and says that even though we find this in the Tosefta mentioned above, but increases, it would seem that we say that for drink there is the same measurement as eating, which would be half a loaf of bread. And he adds that the Tosefta Sochim explains regarding drinking, it's half a loaf of bread. Because the Mishnah writes that the text of our text in the Tosefta Psochim is not half of a bread, but rather a revius, not like the Rae had as his text. The Kesef Mishnah also makes this distinction between what makes a person tomei, which is the Rabbanon, and therefore they strengthened it to be even a larger measure, and that which is Torah, where you go according to the smaller measure. And he brings, the Marik says, that when it comes to forbidden foods, you are actually transgressed because you benefit in your throat already, not when it comes to your stomach. And therefore, if there's a revius, it's a smaller measure, but by eating, the hano continues longer, and therefore the measure is longer because you feel it in your stomach, whereas drinks you don't feel it in your stomach. Therefore, tumas agvia, making the body tomei, it doesn't have to do with how you enjoy it, because even if somebody else pushed it into his throat, he would also become tomei. Therefore, the Rambam is of the opinion that it has nothing to do with the benefit that a person feels, and both of them, the amount of time would be achilus pras. So we have to look into this. If the shiur of gathering of drinking is the amount of a half bread, like eating, or it is much more than the drinking of revius. Therefore, any isser, any forbidden item, it could be that if he drinks it very slowly, it'll still gather together because he didn't have between each sip or between the first sip and the last sip, to combine them more than 9 minutes. The Halacha Mishnah questions: the amount of drinking on Yom Kippur for an average person is a bit less than a revius. Therefore, he started to drink and he stopped in the middle, and the time of a revius went by. How can you say? How can you measure if from the beginning of the drinking till the end is the amount of a revius? How do you measure that? And the Mishnah explains that it could be that he drank a little bit of the revius quickly, he stopped, and then the rest of it he drank the rest of it quickly, and there, if between all the times of drinking the revius normally rather than quickly, it would be the time of revius. In other words, he says, if revius is the amount that one transgresses, and the time of revius is the time, so then it can't be more than the amount of time it takes to swallow revius. And he says that it must be that he gulped down the first part and he gulped down the last part and he waited in between. But he himself says that seems to be a very difficult answer. The Halacha, the Shulchan Aruch cites both opinions. First, the Rambam: if you drank a little bit and you then stopped and drank again, if this from the beginning till the end, the amount of revius, it does combine to a shiur. If not, you can continue to drink, and that would apply to a sick person on Yom Kippur. And there are those who say that the amount of combining is a half of bread. Otherwise, and therefore, you would not be able to continue to drink on Yom Kippur. The Mishnah Berurah writes, from the language of the Mechab of the Shulchan Aruch, it would seem that the main idea is Halacha is like the first one, like the Rambam. But Chodesh Negoin write, the main Halacha is that you say, even by drinking, it's Kedei Achilas Pras. That is also the opinion of the Ravid, and Trumas, that the shiur is Kedei Achilas Pras, a half of bread. The Mishnah Melech in Hilchos Brochos questions, if somebody drinks coffee or tea, which is hot, and usually you drink it over a longer period of time, and there is from the beginning of drinking until the end of drinking more than the amount of a half an egg, are you liable for a brocha achroina or not? If the shiur of the time is according to each and every type, or it doesn't matter what kind of drink it is. In other words, you say whether it's a cold drink which you swallow in one gulp, or it's a hot drink which you drink over time, the time is the same. There are some of the great men who are of the opinion that anything that you drink slowly, you have a much larger period of time. And he disagrees, according to the Rambam, that a woman who herself, she is a rishon l'tumah, and she is nursing her child. So the son is considered Torah, and they did not make an edict they should be Tomei. Even though that he drank revius, it could be from the beginning till the end is more than Kedei Achilas Pras, because he doesn't drink it one shot. Now, a teenager usually drinks very slowly, by baby, and even so, the Rambam writes that it is a Kedei Achilas Pras of a big person. You don't change the situation because it's a baby. The Miller's Chinuch disagrees, and he writes that the time of Achilas Pras is different on each and every type of eating, and you have to know how long it takes for a person to eat that item. Therefore, according to him, coffee and tea, if you drink them slowly, if they're hot, they will be longer. Also, there's not only a leniency, there's also a stringency. If you give a sick person to drink hot stuff, he'll have to wait longer between the times that he can drink before he can drink again.